I'm Vinnie Politan. The subject of my investigation is the murder for hire of law professor Dan Markel. It's a case about religion, marriage, divorce, custody, and a deadly murder plot that left two boys without a dad. Here's the story. Law professor and devoted father of two, Dan Markel, was involved in a bitter custody battle with his ex-wife, Wendi Adelson. Wendi wanted to move with the kids from Tallahassee, Florida to South Florida to be closer to her mother, Donna, her father, Harvey, and her brother, Charlie. And after Dan Markel was gunned down in his driveway in 2014, that is exactly what Wendi did. Investigators were able to track down the gunman, Latin King gang member Luis Rivera, and his friend Sigfredo Garcia. But why did these two men kill Dan Markel? Investigators would come to find a connection. Sigfredo Garcia's longtime girlfriend, Catherine McBanoa, was having sex with Wendi Adelson's brother, Charlie. And after the murders, Catherine was collecting cash, checks, and gifts from Charlie. Authorities determined this was a murder for hire orchestrated by Charlie Adelson. After wiretaps, undercover operations, and a murder trial, Charlie Adelson has now joined Catherine McBanoa, Sigfredo Garcia, and Luis Rivera behind bars. But now, Donna Adelson, Dan's former mother-in-law, has been arrested and charged with orchestrating this entire murder for hire plot. It's amazing how many years have transpired since that murder, and trials are still happening. And this was a custody battle between Wendi Adelson and Dan Markel, but it's Charlie Adelson who's been convicted. It's Donna Adelson who is going to be on trial. And it's been, for each of the first three trials, Wendi Adelson who's testified. And in this case, her mom subpoenaed her, and she fought that subpoena. Here's the judge's decision.
The defense cannot give the witness immunity as it relates to any matters in which she would testify under and could properly invoke the Fifth Amendment privilege. No witness can be called to the stand simply to invoke the Fifth Amendment, as there would be no basis for this witness to take the stand and give testimony on a relevant matter that also could not affect her ability to also endanger her own Fifth Amendment right. I am going to grant the relief that is requested. If we need to revisit this issue for any purpose where the defense believes there is a line of questioning that will not go to the Fifth Amendment privilege of the witness, we will at the appropriate time. But I do believe it is the proper ruling at this point to quash the subpoena.
So the subpoena from the defense was quashed, but she's been subpoenaed also by the prosecution, and through the prosecution, she can get the immunity. And that brings us to the first question in our investigation. What will Wendi's testimony be about? What is she going to testify about in the trial against her own mother? Here to help answer that question is Joel Waldman, host of Surviving the Survivor podcast, which has gone so deep in investigating this story in this case. That's why we bring him on. Also with us, Brandy Churchwell, host of the 13th Juror podcast and Crime Junkie Jury on YouTube. Got to check those out. Okay, before we get to our discussion, I'd like to take a listen to my colleague, Court TV anchor Ted Rowlands, give us a preview and take a look at the testimony of Wendi Adelson.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth? You may be seated.
Wendi Adelson has never been charged in her ex-husband Dan Markel's murder, but she's testified in 3 trials that ended with the convictions of her brother Charlie, his ex-girlfriend, and her ex-boyfriend. In exchange, Wendi received a specific form of immunity.
And are you here today pursuant to a subpoena? Yes, ma'am.
All right, and that subpoena confers use and derivative use immunity too, so nothing you say could be used against you in the future.
That is correct.
Okay. That doesn't mean you have full immunity from prosecution, but nothing you say here and nothing derived from it could be used in that prosecution. Is that your understanding?
That is my understanding.
While those courtroom statements can't be used against her to develop new evidence, prosecutors do have her police interview, the only one other time Wendi spoke to authorities about her ex-husband's death.
What happened? Well, before we get into everything, I have to establish where you were and who you were with and so forth. Okay?
Wendi was questioned by police hours after the father of her two sons was found shot and critically injured at his home. When asked about their divorce in 2013, she called the relationship contentious.
Danny didn't treat me very well, and I'm so scared that maybe someone did this. Not because they hate Danny, but because they thought this was good somehow.
Would you ever ask someone to do something like this?
Not in a million years.
Okay. Do you think someone would do this for your benefit without asking you?
No.
Moments later, she oddly mentioned her older brother, Charlie, raising some red flags.
He makes a lot of jokes in bad taste. He said, I looked into hiring a hitman and it was cheaper to get you this TV, so instead I got you this TV.
Her comments led police to push for more answers about the Adelson family.
Somebody tried to kill my ex-husband. They should be prosecuted to the full extent of the law.
Regardless of who it is.
I mean, it would be different if I thought it were my brother, but I don't think it was my family. I'm gonna call my parents. And they're very angry with him, right? Like, well, this isn't like it's their son, but he's the father of my kids. And this is a very, part of my language, up situation.
Wendi's fourth time testifying is for her mother Donna's trial. Tallahassee attorney Stephen Webster, who represented Dan Markell before his death, testified at Charlie Adelson's trial and has closely followed the case.
I do believe the state is going to ultimately charge Wendi. I don't see any new evidence that has been developed based upon Wendi's testimonies, compelled testimony. So I'm really not concerned at all about any derivative use challenges should she ultimately be prosecuted.
All right, Joel, what are we going to hear from Wendi Adelson now at the trial of her own mother?
Well, we're going to hear the motive here, but more importantly, it's going to be who's asking the questions. And since the defense subpoena was quashed, the direct examination is going to be by Georgia Kappelman, who is perhaps the most fierce prosecutor in the great state of Florida. And she is going to, again, ask Wendi Adelson about this divorce, why it was so contentious. Why was her mother so heavily involved in this? Why did Wendi Adelson drive past the crime scene the morning this murder happened? She's going to ask, why was her brother making jokes about hitmen? Things that just don't add up, don't make a lot of sense. And trust me, I'm with Stephen Webster, who's a guest on my show frequently. They're not done yet. They're going after Wendi Adelson after this trial. Georgia's got her game face on. As they say in the UFC, it is fight week. It is fight week for Donna Adelson and the prosecutors right now.
Brandy, just the optics of this, right? When I cover these cases and try to analyze them, try to put myself into the jury box. And the jury's going to see the state of Florida call to the stand the defendant's own daughter and use her testimony to try to convict the mother. That is powerful if it comes across as effective as it did in the first several trials.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's crazy because she's actually the main witness to lay the groundwork for how her mother fits into her ex-husband's murder. You know, through her, some of the most damning evidence comes in. The prosecution will introduce a few key things that are necessary to actually put this whole conspiracy charge together. I mean, Donna's feelings towards Dan are a big part of that. So all of those emails where, you know, and even the interviews where Wendy's saying, oh yeah, my parents, you know, they're very angry toward Dan and the derogatory names that Donna calls him. They'll introduce how deeply Donna is involved herself in their divorce, especially with Wendi relocating to South Florida and offering him $1 million and, you know, converting the kids to Catholicism, all of these things. It's really going to lay the groundwork for how involved she was and make the jury understand how this could all be possible. And it's crazy that it's her own daughter that is going to be the reason all of this is introduced.
Oh, absolutely. And Joel, you know, I've watched that interview so many times, and I watch it, and I'm like, what I take away from it is like, she's kind of like planting seeds that her family could be involved in this. Even though she says, no, I don't think they were, but like the seeds are there. You could read between the lines.
Yeah, it's one of the crazier interviews. If you watch it more than 1 or 2 or 300 times like I have, you start to really pick things up. And you know that investigators have done that. So within the first few minutes, she essentially throws her brother, Charlie, who's now a convicted killer, throws him right under the bus and says he made this joke about a hitman. But what's even crazier is that she picks up her cell phone at one point and calls her mother. And if you really listen to that call, and I mean really listen to it, it's not like, hey, Mom, I've got this terrible news. My ex-husband was murdered. I don't know the circumstances. I'm worried about my kids. None of that comes up. It's almost to let Mama Donna know that the job was done, and it appears that they know exactly what that job is. And trust me, no one knows this better again than Sarah Catherine Dugan, the prosecutor, and Georgia Kappelman, who really run the show. And they are going to make Wendi as uncomfortable as she's been before on the stand. They're going to make her even more uncomfortable this time. And what does she do when that happens? She gets combative. And when you get combative with Georgia, you look silly.
All right, our guests are staying with us. Coming up next, why is the communication between Wendi and Donna so awkward?
When was the last time you talked to your mom? Did you talk to her today, yesterday?
I talked to her yesterday.
Patriarch of the Adelson family gets arrested.
Donna Adelson is facing charges of murder, the death of her former son-in-law, Dan Markell.
Prosecutors say a bitter child custody battle was the motive for the murder-for-hire plot. Now that Donna has turned into a defendant, what's next for the Adelson clan?
Now that the ship is really sinking fast, blood doesn't matter that much.
The Matriarch Mastermind murder trial. Live coverage begins this week, only on Court TV.
When was the last time you talked to your mom? Did you talk to her today, yesterday?
I talked to her yesterday.
In her emails, and we referenced one of them while you've been here on the stand, she talks about you giving performances and playing roles. Did you discuss anything about what you would do here today in court with your mother?
No.
So much of this case and the trial of Donna Adelson is going to be about this mother-daughter relationship. It's crucial to everything. I mean, Donna was the matriarch. She was the meddler. You know, she is very involved in her daughter's life. But what I'm going to play for you right now is something that was caught on tape, that was recorded. This is after Charlie Adelson is convicted. Donna and Charlie speak all the time, so it's a jailhouse call. All jailhouse calls are recorded. We know that. But Donna was on the phone with Charlie, and then Charlie hung up or got off the phone, whatever happened. But the recording continued. So what you're about to hear is Donna Adelson in her home with other people talking to each other, but being recorded on that open line. And what's recorded here is Donna talking about communications back and forth with her daughter, Wendi. Again, this is after Charlie has been convicted. Take a listen.
So I wrote this last night. We know you never ask anything about your brother. This is 8 o'clock last night. But we just got off the phone with him, and the first thing he asked was, how's Wendi holding up? I didn't have the heart to tell him that you never called us or asked about him. I just said, we weren't up to phone calls right now. Everyone looks to protect you. I bet you've got a lot to think about. But then she didn't answer. But then I got another call from Charlie last night, and I said, just got off the phone with Charlie. He's worried about you. He wants to know why we didn't speak. I told him a lie. I said, we're only speaking with you and Dan right now. I couldn't bear to tell him the truth. Your sister never even called us, is the truth. So she says this morning, I thought she'd be racing over here last night. Yeah. Dear Mom, I know you are upset by the verdict, but the anger directed at me is not justified. I don't know how much anger. We don't. I'm not responsible in any way for Charlie's situation. I am not guilty because I did not do anything wrong, and I was not involved in any way with Danny's death. I didn't say she was. When I was interviewed by the police and testified in court, I told the truth as I was required to do. I cannot control how the prosecutor used my statements at Charlie's trial. Again, I didn't say that. Also, as you know, I do know, my lawyer has advised me not to talk to my family or anyone else about this case. No, about the case, which is true. We've never done it. I followed his advice despite your disagreements with this guidance. Please do not text me about this case anymore. Not about the case, is it? Not what I said. About her brother, and that he wants, how are you, Wendy? How's my sister holding up? Yeah. If you have anything further to say about the case, please go through our lawyers. Right now, I have to be singularly focused on taking care of the boys during this difficult time.
And all of that, she's talking to people that she's in a room with. She doesn't know she's being recorded, and she's reading these text messages and these communications with her daughter, Wendy. And that brings us to the next question in our investigation. Why is the communication between Wendy and Donna so awkward? Here to help with our investigation is creator and host of Grizzly True Crime YouTube channel, Gisela K. And still with us, Brandy Churchwell. All right, Gisela, what are your thoughts here about why everything is so awkward now between Wendy and Donna, mother and daughter? The same mother who helped her find Danny on J-Date.
I think it's always awkward to talk to a coercive controller, in my opinion. And Donna seems to me, another word for that would be helicopter parent in this scenario, but she seems to be that way because in a family crisis, she demands emotional support and she demands unity. And Wendy is, in a way, the whole time trying to assert some boundaries, trying to say, listen, this is a little inappropriate, it's unprofessional. And I think that's what makes it so awkward because Wendy herself is walking on eggshells. And Donna is so manipulative. I mean, that line, everyone looks to protect you. I bet you've got a lot to think about. That just says it all to me.
Brandy, what are your thoughts about mother-daughter communications here at this point, post-conviction of brother Charlie?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Donna is not great with boundaries. She looks at her children's lives kind of as an extension of her own. So she seems like she really wants control. And I think, you know, as all of these things have kind of gone completely sideways, it seems like Wendy's tried to kind of distance herself from everything. But, you know, I think if you look at it based on the prosecution's theory, this was all arranged in a way that kind of gave Wendy plausible deniability, which means Donna's communication is very emotionally loaded. She's trying to control the situation and the narrative while also kind of balancing that sense of how heavy this is and what she knows and feeling like Wendy owes her for what she's done. While on the other hand, Wendy is responding in very kind of calculated, very careful, almost like robotic ways, completely void of any emotion. And it's all written as if everything she's writing will be read in court and picked apart. And I think that that imbalance creates that awkwardness because their communication can't be natural because of that.
Gisela, what do you think it's going to be like when Wendy comes into the courtroom, takes the stand, called by the prosecution, and there's her mom sitting at the defendant's table?
Oh, that's going to be interesting. And will she be in the same outfit as at all the other trials? That's another interesting one. What will she be wearing? And what will she be saying this time? I think she's so afraid of being implicated in these crimes. So I understand why she's being extremely careful. And she's smart and she's a lawyer. But that is going to be awkward. And I'm going to be looking at Donna. The minute the camera's on Donna, I'm going to look. I'm sure the jury will too, right? They're going to look at Donna's body language and read the room on that.
Do you expect any warmth inside that courtroom, Brandy?
No, not at all. I was in the courtroom for Charlie's trial, and I remember it was just, everything felt so cold when everything was going on, like when the testimony was happening, and there seems to be no. Wendi almost seems like kind of the outsider with everything and the way that she talks. I mean, the one thing I know that we can, like you said, we can probably expect that dress and talk about, what was it?
Paella, yes. That was the big birthday gift for Harvey.
Yeah, we can at least
Surprise.
expect that, but.
Right. Surprise, surprise. Have some paella. Okay, Brandy Churchwell, great to have you on the program tonight. Thank you so much. Check her out, Crime Junkie Jury on YouTube, 13th Juror Podcast. Gizla's going to stay with us. Up next, what potential new evidence will there be in this trial? I'm Vinnie Politan. We continue our investigation of the murder for hire of Dan Markel. The hitman has confessed. 3 others have been convicted, but now the former mother-in-law of Dan Markel has been charged with pulling all the strings. Here's the story. Charlie Adelson's sister, Wendi, was going through a bitter custody battle with her ex, law professor and loving father Dan Markel. Wendi wanted her children to move to South Florida, closer to her family. Charlie convinced his on-again, off-again girlfriend, Catherine McBanoa, to get her ex, Sigfredo Garcia, to murder Dan. Sigfredo, with the help of his Latin King buddy, Luis Rivera, drove over 400 miles from South Florida to Tallahassee to murder Dan. Charlie was convicted at trial, so were Sigfredo and Catherine. Luis pleaded guilty. And now, Wendi's mother, Donna Adelson, is getting ready for her trial, also charged with being a part of this murder-for-hire plot that left her grandchildren without a father. It's been a long road in the prosecution of this case because of all the defendants involved and the way prosecutors have done this. So there's been several trials leading up to this trial. Let's take a look at some of those moments from the first few cases.
As soon as I pulled in, Garcia jumped out the car and went around. Went to the driver's side and shot him.
He shot Mr. Markel?
Yes, ma'am.
How many times?
Twice.
Did you actually see Mr. Garcia shoot Mr. Markel?
Of course.
So Garcia either called Katie or got a call from Katie, and that was the first call that either of y'all made after the murder?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, and how do you know that call was to Katie?
Because when he was speaking, he like, hey, it's done, because I already know it's done.
Mr. Garcia, is he the one that came to you with the information about this job that needed to be done?
Absolutely.
And I say job, is that what this murder was to you?
Yes, ma'am.
So your motive for coming to Tallahassee and participating in this murder was money?
Yes, ma'am. Absolutely.
Did you know Dan Markel?
No.
Did you know anything about him?
No.
So do you know why Garcia or how Garcia came to know about this murder or this job?
His girl.
Who's that?
Katie.
All right, so am I correct that Katie hired Garcia and Garcia hired you?
Yes, ma'am.
And who was to get the money once the job was done?
Katie.
Were all of the checks deposited by Catherine McBanoa?
They were.
Who were all the checks signed by?
Donna Adelson.
So this thing started back in October of 13 and doesn't get done until July of 14. Can you describe whether there's any pressure as time is going on and this thing is not getting done?
Trying to remember, like in the beginning of the year, I don't think there was really much. I mean, he's been planting this seed in my head that this needed to get done, this needed to get done. And I guess towards probably around June, July is when he was a little bit more adamant about this job getting done.
Okay, and when you say he, you're talking about who?
Charlie.
Did you ever have any contact with any other Adelson about this job?
No, ma'am.
when I gave her the TV set as a divorce present, this is the stupidest thing I ever said in my life. And I said, you know, I was going to get you a Hitman, but the TV set was a lot cheaper, so I went with the TV set instead. And I said it as a complete joke, and it was stupid.
We wanted to bring an undercover in who pretended to be a gang member who was an associate of Mr. Rivera. We knew that Mr. Rivera was in jail. We knew that Mr. Rivera was having financial issues, and we wanted to insert somebody into this equation to get people talking again, because it had been over a year since the crime was committed, and we knew that they probably weren't talking about it anymore.
And now prosecutors going after Donna Adelson in the fourth trial. And that brings us to the next question in our investigation. What potential new evidence will there be in this trial? Here to help with our investigation is the creator and host of Grizzly True Crime YouTube channel, Gisela Kay, and Joel Waldman, host of Surviving the Survivor podcast. All right, before we discuss this, Judge Ashley Wilcott took a closer look at this exact issue.
The driver's side window is all bashed in. He's inside, the car is running, and he's got blood all over his head.
That harrowing 911 call by a neighbor was made 11 years ago on July 18th of 2014. The victim was 41-year-old law professor Dan Markell.
I don't know if somebody tried to shoot him or if he shot himself or what, I don't know.
State attorneys successfully prosecuted 4 people in a murder-for-hire plot that included former dentist Charlie Adelson, who was Markell's ex-brother-in-law. Now Markell's former mother-in-law, Donna, stands trial for murder. And though the state's case largely mirrors the past trials, new evidence has recently been revealed.
It has been a number of years since I last wrote a exact statement, sharing how Johnny's death has affected me. Not only have I lost my son, but I have effectively lost 2 of my grandkids as well.
After hearing this victim impact statement by Phil Markell during Charlie Adelson's 2023 murder trial, a new witness felt compelled to come forward with information. Sarah Youssef, a longtime friend of the victim's ex-wife, Wendi, told authorities she was at an Adelson party thrown not long after Markell's then unsolved murder. According to court documents, Youssef overheard Donna Adelson say, "They're talking about Dan like he was a beloved professor. But you know something? He was a jerk." Youssef thought this was, quote, outsized anger and abnormal because in most cultures, we don't speak ill of the dead. These observations may be brought up during Donna's trial. Prosecutors also have evidence obtained during Donna's incarceration. This new investigation started in 2024 and includes informants, jail calls, and wiretaps on Donna's husband's Harvey's phone.
There was word from within the jail here, from an inmate, that Donna was talking a lot about the case. She wanted to reach out to potential witnesses, presumably to try to tamper with witnesses.
Donna doesn't face any tampering charges and her team denies any wrongdoing, but the information could be used if and when the defendant herself, Donna Adelson, takes the stand.
Can you please state your name for the record and make sure you speak into the microphone?
Yes, Donna Adelson.
The now 75-year-old has been vocal at pretrial hearings since her 2023 arrest.
I've gained more than 1/3 of my body weight here. The diet is all carbs, no protein.
Her attorneys have stated that at trial, Donna Adelson wants to tell her side of the story.
I wasn't afraid of being arrested. My husband and I were literally shocked and traumatized at what had happened to Charlie. And he said, we need to just get some peace. We need to catch our breath. We're going to go away somewhere. And I thought it was a good idea.
All right, Joel. What new evidence are you expecting here in Donna's trial?
Well, I'll say this. I think we're definitely getting new evidence. What it is, if I had to guess, I'd say digital forensic evidence. And that's because on the day of Donna's arrest, November 13th, 2023, a week after Charlie's conviction, Pat Sanford, who's in one of your pieces just now, he's the FBI agent who arrested her. And when they got her going on her one-way ticket to Vietnam via Dubai, you can see in this video right here, if you watch closely enough, she tries to yank that cell phone away from Pat Sanford. Well, he got it, and he got some other digital devices. And being 75, 76 years old now, and Harvey in his early 80s, I can't imagine that they are too great with technology. I have a feeling that the state attorney's office got some stuff off those devices yet to be determined, or at least yet to be revealed to us. And I have no doubt they will have additional information.
Yeah, that's a great point. My guess is, Gisela, they weren't familiar with the Telegram app like Stephen Stearns and others, right? That some of their communications are going to be wide open on these cell devices if there's anything incriminating there. I was thinking there could also be some new evidence coming from Donna herself by testifying and saying things maybe we've never heard before.
I mean, that's going to be very interesting, but for me, I cannot wait to see the estranged eldest son, Robert Adelson, potentially take the stand, because that's going to be so unique, never before seen. He doesn't, abide by this, we need to protect the family at all cost. Clearly, that's why he's estranged. So imagine knowing what her behavior was like after the murders from his perspective. Imagine the specific things that she maybe said to him that he could now tell the world, and the context of the family dynamics from someone that isn't loyal, like perhaps Wendi is. I'm really excited to hear from him, and I hope he takes the stand.
Yeah, and Joel, that family dynamic is fascinating to me, because Rob was estranged because he married someone who wasn't Jewish, and Wendi gets divorced because her husband is too Jewish.
Yeah, it's obviously a very strange juxtaposition, dichotomy, whatever you want to call it, but that's exactly right. Rob Adelson is estranged from the rest of the family, and it stems from the fact that he fell in love with an Indian-American woman. Donna wanted no part of it and says, this isn't happening. Eventually, he gets estranged from the family, and he's married to her, thankfully, because he seems very happily married and like the good egg in the family. Meanwhile, Wendy's married to a guy she meets on J-Date, a Jewish guy who's trying to become more Jewish. And what does? She tells Wendi to dress up her own grandchildren as Nazis as a way to turn off this Jewish husband of hers. This is a sick, depraved family. And they love to talk, by the way. So I think they're going to talk. Wendi might say something. Donna, to your point, is likely to say something on that stand that's going to open the proverbial legal door. And I think we're going to get more information. And as I said in the first segment, I think Georgia and Jack Campbell, the state attorney, they have their eyes set on this person on your screen, Wendi Adelson, who's the one who's been the most careful, but you can't hide the truth forever.
Yeah, Gisela, compared to the other trials, I think this one, more so, you're going to hear a lot more about the family dynamics. You have to, because
definitely.
And even if you look at the alleged plot, it's like Donna is sort of giving the ideas to Charlie, who is then executing the ideas. So everything's got to flow within the family here. And this is going to be the entire Adelson family, excluding Rob, on trial.
Exactly, and it might be, well, it would be the first time that maybe all three of Donna's children take the stand. So can you imagine that, just cross-referencing all the information? They have to be even more careful now, especially with Rob Adelson on the stand. And then we've still got the jail informant that might testify against Donna. I mean, this is going to be one of the most interesting trials in the series, which really feels like a movie. This plot is absolutely crazy.
And Joel, you think about the life that everyone could have had, and the life that those two little boys should have had. A father who wanted to be there for every moment, right? A father, who can guide them through life, and then have, you know, grandparents in Canada that love them, grandparents in South Florida that love them, and it should have been the best of both worlds for those two little boys.
100%. Great observation. I mean, the Adelsons come from a lot of wealth. They made their wealth. They made it even bigger as successful periodontists. But on the flip side, my heart, when you showed that victim impact statement from Phil Markel, I lost my own father to old age about 2.5 years ago. Phil has kind of become my de facto father. I'm going to be spending time with him here in Tallahassee, where I am right now. My heart just bleeds for Ruth, Phil, the father, and Shelly, Dan's sister. They don't deserve to be going through this 11 years later. And man, if Dan was half the guy, I never got to meet Dan, but if he was half the guy that Phil is, he was an amazing human being.
Absolutely. Joel Waldman, Surviving the Survivor, Gisela Kay, Grizzly True Crime, thank you both so much. Still to come, as we're very close to the trial getting underway, jury selection underway, who is the ideal juror for both sides?
Who just without any pause believes that she can lie her way out of anything.
Coming soon to Court TV.
A Microsoft executive gunned down. Now his ex and her new husband are charged with his murder.
Brian Walsh, accused of murdering his wife, Anna.
It's very disturbing, very heart-wrenching.
A social media sensation, now a suspected killer.
Why do you have something against me?
She wrote a children's book about her husband's death. Now she's accused of killing him.
The high-stakes trials you don't want to miss. Coming soon, only on Court TV.
If Donna decides to testify, which, I mean, it's hard to envision a pathway forward where she doesn't, I expect that we are going to see someone who is an elitist and who just without any pause believes that she can lie her way out of anything.
That's Stephen Webster, the post-divorce attorney for Dan Markel, talking about Donna Adelson. Now, I think we all agree, and I think we heard defense sort of stated in court that she is going to testify. Everyone is expecting her to take the witness stand. Now, so jury selection underway. Here's some of the questions for the jurors during their initial screening that they had to answer. Are you a full-time student between the ages of 18 and 21? Have you given birth within 6 months of your reporting date? What do you know about the case? That's a big one, right? And if you're in Tallahassee, this is a big case in Tallahassee, in a smaller county, Leon County. Can you serve on the jury up to 3 weeks? The trial will last 2 weeks, but the entire process is 3 weeks, because you've got the testimony, you've got jury selection, then you've got deliberations as well. So jury selection, many attorneys will say it's the most important moment of the trial, because these are the people who are going to be making the decision. And you know how different all of us are in the way we view the world. And that brings us to the next question in our investigation. Who is the ideal juror for both sides, right? If you look at both sides of this case, who does the prosecution want? Who does the defense want? I know who I want to help answer that question. Joining us right now, jury consultant, human behavior expert, and body language expert, Susan Constantine. Susan, great to see you tonight.
Thank you.
This is in Florida.
Nice to see you too.
Yeah, this is in Florida,
yes.
In Tallahassee, which has kind of a small town feel, even though it's the capital up there. Let's start with the prosecution. They have the burden of proof. Who, from your perspective, would be the ideal juror for prosecutors? What do you want to see in the jurors that they get onto this panel of 12?
So what I like to do is to separate out the egalitarians versus authoritarians. And for the state, I'm always looking for those authoritarians, ones that can make those swift decisions. They're decision makers. They hold positions as supervisors or managers. I'm looking for someone that's closer to the middle age. They're rule followers. They're tougher on crime than they are And they also are very much value-oriented and also accountability, less sympathetic, okay? So what we're looking for is someone that certainly is not going to be as sympathetic as I would be looking for on the defense, and also, too, that might have an issue with the wealthy and the privileged.
Okay, let's talk about the defense now. Who are they looking for? What are the attributes of the ideal juror for Donna Adelson?
Well, this is interesting because I'm going to select a jury of her peers, which is a little bit different than I've done in some of these other cases. But because of her age group, I want someone, an older group. I want those that are more in mature ages, those that are more empathetic. They're reluctant. They don't just make quick judgments. And they're really slow to convict. So they're also a little bit more on the naive side. So I'm looking for those types of people, but keep in mind, these are only just demographics, because once they do the one-on-one voir dire, that's where we start to really talk about more about family, family dynamics and dysfunction and divorce and children and all that stuff. All the family stuff is really what's going to be important. And that's what they're going to be chiseling down when they get into the one-on-one voir dire.
How much will because Florida is a very large state, it's a very long state. Mm-hmm. Tallahassee couldn't be more different than where the Adelsons are from. And Donna sort of has that northeastern kind of vibe to her anyway, which is what South Florida, a lot of folks down there are like. Tallahassee, much different. How much does that come into play? And does that come into play in jury selection? Would you be looking for people who maybe aren't originally from Tallahassee to be on the jury for Donna Adelson, who's not from there?
Well, when you think about Tallahassee, that's our capital, right? So we've got a lot of political people that are there. So yes, I mean, all of that takes into play, but primarily when you're dealing with a big case like this, you really have to do what we call pre-trial stuff. So you have to do more research, understanding the demographics of that area, and understanding, of course, you know, what maybe you can't really figure out if they're Democrat or Republican, but you can learn a lot about them, especially we're in the state of Florida, primarily more likely Republican. So all of these things are really important, but yes, everything factors into it. So I'm a big one on doing pretrial research prior to it. So I want to know, you know, the demographics of the area, and we're talking about age demographics. All of that is really important. Their level of occupation, their education, and all of that. And she's Jewish too, you know, and she's, you know, she's got a little bit of a kind of a strong accent, so she's not going to be testifying. But all of those things all do play into jury selection or deselection.
Absolutely. And I think she will testify, though. And you know, when she testifies, we're calling you to take a look at her body language and her behavior. Susan Constantine, thank you so much. Wendi Adelson's relationship with her mother and brother is complicated, but without her statements to police and her testimony at trial, the case against both would be much weaker. The irony is that the person who benefited the most from Dan's murder still has not been charged. It's a very bizarre situation. But remember, folks, there is no statute of limitation for murder. I'm Vinnie Politan. We'll keep digging for answers as the investigation continues.